Greetings and spooky salutations to you, dear thrill seeker and purveyor of terror and chill. Enter, if you dare, into the dark sanctum of the Psycho Kino for a special and ghastly offering of movies most foul. From his slumber, under this fullest of moons, we have awoken the vision caster himself, Lloyd the Bud Cotton, to cast into your very souls black offerings of terror and horror, spewed from the hellish and harrowing minds of Luke Searle and Graham Thomas. For they, the servants of despair and degradation, invite you to join them in a journey deep into the darkest heart of dread, into the very center of fear. Pray to God, lowly mortal, that you have the courage to come with us now into the abyss of Racehorse Movies Halloween Special, Envocato Desperium. That's me and Trey. Now you try and do that in a Rumpelstiltskin voice. Greetings and spooky salutations to you, dear thrill seeker.
It's the way you went from, ooh, hey! You were just immediately back to Cheeky Graham.
There we go.
Perfect, man. There we go, dudes. Get some spookiness underneath that. We're sorted, mate. Nice.
Done. So here we are. We're in the renamed Psycho Kino for a Halloween special, a spooky Halloween special. How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling terrified, man. I'm feeling absolutely on the edge of losing all sanity in a Cthulhu-esque nightmare, man. Yeah, I'm feeling good. Exactly as I should be feeling on this hallowed of all eaves.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to chat a little bit about horror movies, some of our favourites, what horror means to us, and then get a pitch in for some horrible, ghastly tales of terror and blood-chilling dread.
Oh, yes. So, what does horror mean to us, man? Sorry, we're not going to deliver an essay, but what are some first...
Horror and me.
Yeah, horror dictionary definition. Yeah, what are your first memories, man? How did you, like...
Some very kind of primal reactions to some of the scarier films that I've seen, especially coming into the love of cinema. You watch horror perhaps when you shouldn't, because it's that illicit nature of it. I think we talked about Alien before, but there are certain other elements in my kind of relationship with horror that came to me whereby I didn't realize I was watching a horror, or in fact the film might not even be classified as a horror, but it had such a reaction to me that it terrified me and gave me the dread and the nightmares. So one film in particular, to me, is outright horror, but I don't think it would be classified as horror by anyone else.
Okay.
Was the Terry Gilliam film Brazil. Now, when I saw that the first time, I think I was probably 14 or 15. And there's something about the design of that film. There's something about the nightmarish, obviously the nightmarish bureaucracy. There's something about the production design. I remember being scared by all the kind of cables and pipes.
Yeah, it's almost Geiger-esque almost, and it's like intestinal imagery and whatnot.
The way that these buildings were designed in this world, it seemed like humans were an absolute afterthought. Like the buildings seemed alive with all their entrails on display, and then we just happened to like have to find our space within them, which felt like a really horrible, terrifying thing. And obviously that's a symptom of the crushing bureaucracy that our hero in that film suffers through. Just felt, for my young impressionable mind, that I was watching a nightmare unfold in front of me. And I don't think I've seen the film since that first time. I've seen bits, and I know that it's a masterpiece and everything like that, but it really affected me, and I couldn't sleep, and I was just thinking about it all day, and it was just dreadful. And I think that might be why I've hated every office job I've ever had. Because I feel like
I was going to say, it just prepared you for later life, didn't it? It's like, thanks, Terry, giving us a little window into the future.
It was unlike any of the other films I'd seen, obviously with the production design, but Terry Gilliam's particular style,
his
some
tone.
lens choices, his tone.
Yep.
It just really, really threw me for a loop, and it rattled me to my very core much more than, say, I don't know, Nightmare on Elm Street had done. This was a different level of terror, and especially because I didn't have ways in which I could express why it was affecting me.
Yes.
I couldn't say because the scary man with a knife chopped the woman's head off. It was just a pervasive sense of dread that seeped under my skin and got really down into me, and I couldn't explain it, and no one else could understand it, and so that made me feel even more alienated and scared, like trying to describe a nightmare to someone, and they don't care, and obviously it's never as scary to them as it was to you.
Yeah.
And watching Brazil was a nightmare for me in the best possible way.
So was that the first thing you can remember watching, or was that just the most impressionable horror movie sort of back when you were young?
I mean, there are horror films that I adore to this day and that are considered like Alien, for example, we've talked about before, is one of my favourite films of all time ever. That really affected me when I first saw it. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is in my top 10 favourite films of all time, really affected me. But a lot of that was built up around its reputation as well. And when I watched it, I wasn't so much titillated and scared. It's just outright, again, like I'm watching a nightmare.
Yeah.
And I remember at university, I watched called Tetsuo Iron Man.
Yes.
Which is, I think it's only about 70 minutes long. Again, nightmare fuel, about a guy who's becoming a machine. Like he's grafting rebar cables and metal onto himself to become this machine. But as I started watching that film, found myself edging further and further away from the screen. Till the last 10 minutes, I was literally outside the room, poking my head around the door to finish it off. It was unbelievable, and I've never seen that film since. It's kind of a one and done film.
Yeah. It's an experience. It's an assault of sorts, which is its own reward, but it is full on, and that played into my discussed previously Benny Hill fear, where. The fast motion of Benny Hill I found very unsettling and horrific and too much, and that is like Tetsu is that to times 10 times 100. It's just an absolute assault of imagery that shouldn't be moving like it is, and that's also, I've got a bit of a sort of stop motion unsettles me and scares me quite a lot, even if it's in The Life Aquatic by Steve Zissou or something like that. I still find it a very unsettling thing to watch. It's got that feeling of just like
the creeping dread.
So I can completely understand that. And Tetsuo I absolutely remember, and again in university, I think I was looking over someone's shoulder as they watched it as I was going through one of the libraries, and I was like,
someone was watching Tetsuo Iron Man in a public space, like in the library. Amazing. I'm hoping they've been put on a few lists, you know. They've earmarked themselves.
Yeah. CIA's on them, man.
Yeah. So, what about you? What kind of movies? Have you got any examples of horror films outside of the genre that have affected you? Then you can't quite realise why, or you weren't expecting them to.
I was trying to think that, because I was going to ask you exactly that: is things that scare me or films that have scared me that aren't scary, and. Mainly it's it's not necessarily movies, it's CCTV videos or doorbell cam footage like that. I find that terrifying, just to see CCTV. Really? A friend of mine had some personal security installed. This sounds like I've got really rich cool friends. That's not the case. And you could go on their telly and just look at CCTV around like the four corners of the house, and I found that to be scarier than most of the horror movies I've watched in the last 5 or 10 years.
Is it because you think something is going to happen?
Yep. Something's going to shamble into shot. I'm going to see a thing in the corner. I'm not going to be sure if I actually saw it or not, but maybe I did. And then it's going to be in another shot, but closer this time, or something like that. So that freaks me out.
Yeah. Okay.
Like old game shows as well. Like I find them extremely unsettling from like the 80s
like the
or 90s. No, just like an old game show on TV, sort of like like Bullseye used to absolutely terrify me. It just feels like a procession of like now dead people.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
It's so strange to try, and I sort of start thinking about what they're doing now, and then realise that they're all probably dead from like the 70s or something like that, and it's some weird limbo or something. Like I did do a little bit of immersion therapy over lockdown and watched nearly all of every episode of Bullseye ever, which was
really?
to the point like I could recognise contestants' names. Like Crunch is still a favourite if there are any fans out there.
Oh mate,
and
that's interesting.
And it still unsettles me a bit, and I've still got that feeling when I watch an episode where it feels a bit like it's a part in a David Lynch movie or something like that.
I think that might play back to my points about Brazil, in that when you watch these things that everybody loves and you can't explain why it terrifies you, and you can't understand why everybody else doesn't see what you see, it pushes you so far into like a sense of madness or unreason. Like this is happening and I can't explain it and you don't get it. So the whole world is mad.
It's like a
and I'm the only
Casper-esque
one.
nightmare.
Yeah. I feel like I'm permanently living in the end of In the Mouth of Madness.
Yeah.
Amazing. I remember when I saw American Psycho for the first time in the cinema. I went on a date in the cinema.
Oh, good first date movie.
And great first date movie, isn't it? And I remember being scared, but in a kind of new way. The moment when Patrick Bateman kills Paul Allen, Jared Leto's character, in the and he's listening to Huey Lewis in the news, and there's all that he's wearing, puts the raincoat on. He's just giving this big monologue about Huey Lewis in the news, while he's preparing the fact that he's about to chop someone up. The way the scene builds. So I remember in the cinema, the tension, and my heart was going like the clappers. But for some reason, normally when I watch a scary movie in the cinema, if it's too much for me, I tend to focus on one part of the screen. Maybe just like look at the bottom left or something, just take my mind off it or whatever. But for some reason, for the American Psycho, I was so keyed into that sensation, that titillation, that it's happening, it's about to happen. Here it comes, here it comes, here it comes. And you could feel the energy in the room. It was just such a different horror experience, and my reaction to it, to other films that I've seen. So I didn't normally, up until that point, go to the cinema to watch horror films because of my public reaction to them. I didn't want to be scared around people or whatever. Yeah, exactly. I liked them at home in the nighttime, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think I remember watching The Eye with you back in university. And there was a point in that when I think someone just like came at the camera in a very terrifying way, and both you and I hid under some blankets as a reaction. So I completely dig that. You can't always take your blankie into a cinema. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yes, so that was American Psycho. That was a different type of reaction to horror. That kind of fun instead of primal fear. So when you're watching Evil Dead 2 for the first time, and it's scary, but it's fun, and you're going on this roller coaster, or American Werewolf in London, this different type of titillation. I find that's quite interesting. If a horror film can balance those two energies at the same time, it's usually quite successful for me. Like Shaun of the Dead would be a good example of how it goes about that. Okay, well, we should probably start thinking about pitching some scary movies.
I mean, look, totally in line with Halloween, man, Graham. I have bought you a big old bag of bones with very little flesh on them, man.
Okay, let's see if we can add some flesh,
Jack Skellington rattling in my sack, man.
Okay, well, let's do it.
All right, let's go, man.
Okay, so we're going to pitch a couple of movies that we gave each other offline.
Yeah, we're sneaky so-and-sos, aren't we?
I don't remember the race that we chose these from.
That's fine. I'll have a look. So I would love to say that we communicated with some kind of otherworldly horse race that was happening, and we picked our horses from there. But we didn't. We went to...
I would like to think that they came to us in a dream.
Yes, I just awoke.
A nightmare.
And I'd written it in my dream diary in sort of in very scrawled, fearsome-looking writing, man. In blood, in fact. But instead, we didn't get it. We weren't delivered by any monsters or anything like that. Instead, we went to the 6 o'clock at Wolverhampton on Saturday the 7th of October, and we picked a couple of horses. I believe that I picked you My Clementine.
You did indeed, My Clementine.
Did. And what did you give me in return, Graham, man? I'll tell you. It's like, fucked if I know, mate. What do you want? What do you want, man? Paul? You gave me in return, man, a Lincoln's Inn.
Lincoln's Inn?
Yes, not so it's like an inn as in a pub belonging to Lincoln, not like, hey, Lincoln's Inn.
Oh, nice.
Or is Lincoln Inn?
Lincoln's Inn.
Yes, man. Yeah.
Play around with that.
All right,
so Lincoln's Inn and My Clementine. Who's going first?
I mean, I can crack out my bones first if you would like, man, and we can assemble it into a roughshod skeletal form.
All right, Lincoln's Inn.
Yeah, groovy,
what have you got?
Well, first off, I'm just going to hit you with a very quick, like, horror triple bill to go and watch, man, to prep you for Lincoln's Inn.
Nice.
I'm going to give you Creepshow, Cat's Eye, and Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. And that's going to clue you into the fact that we are dealing with a horror anthology here, people.
Yes.
Yes, of course we are. So we begin padding through like the grounds of an old pub out in the middle of nowhere, maybe the Forest of Dean, somewhere like that, somewhere really nice and woody.
So UK.
Yeah, definitely, man. We're going to pan through and we'll have like George Lincoln will be holding court at the bar of this pub. He's the owner, in front of like the 7 or so locals who've come to like his great every year Halloween bonanza that he throws. He's just warming up a spooky story for everyone. And he's underlit and he's all very dramatic and like he's really selling it, man. They've sat there probably on and off for the last 10 to 15 to 20 years to 30 maybe, listening to the same old flipping stories every time Halloween comes round. There is something in the way he tells it that keeps them coming back, man. There feels like there's a certain truth. So we meet him like mid-flow and he's leant up against this massive gnarled beam in the centre of the pub, and it looks older than time itself, man. It looks older than just like any beam in a pub, man. This ain't Victorian, this ain't anything. This is almost pre-time. There's like deep scratches and sort of like maybe, I don't know, something runic. There's stuff all over it, man. And it's like dug centuries ago, man, and like hewn all over this great supporting strut in the middle of Lincoln's Inn. So he starts telling this story, and he really builds it up. He's giving it some beautiful showmanship, man. And he's saying how he can trace the lines of most beams in this pub back to 300 years ago when his family first encountered it, and he can trace the line of this particular beam back even further. And this is where we go straight back into, it sort of looks a bit like the sort of like the helicopter shot or whatever that we had to introduce us to Lincoln's Inn and its surrounding areas, but there's no inn. We see a band of knights coming up into their usual business. They're on a hunting party. They've also sort of captured someone. They've got someone in there that they've captured. They've got a prisoner. That's what the people that you capture are called. Yes, they have one of those, man, in tow. And they're not a good bunch of knights. That's all I know. And they are going to enter the forest with all of the arrogance of man. These knights, they're going to come up against a witch in the forest, who is the commander of the forest, the keeper of the forest.
Nice.
And this witch lives in a very rough-hewn, it almost looks like a big mound of moss. It's part of the forest. And at the centre of this great mossy creation is, of course, the beam we saw at the start. So this witch is going to cross paths with the knights. The beam that she has, and we will cut into we'll dip into voiceover from our great narrator who is leading us through these tales of horror and mystery. And the beam that she has can see the darkness in men's souls. And it's kind of a sort of divining rod of sorts. And we will send sort of like the lead knight will come up to visit the witch and basically just like, get the hell out of here. This is the king's land. You know who this belongs to. What the hell are you doing here with these potions and blah, blah, blah. Witchcraft. All they brought is...
Have you got a licence for what you're doing there, man?
Yeah, excuse me. Have you got a C54.1 to sell potions and unguents? I don't believe you have. And he will like, there won't be any niceties. It will be like, get the hell off of the king's land, man. And so what I want is a witch versus knights for the first segment. And each time a man enters her wonderful little mossy hut, we'll see the beam will glow a sort of deep red, and we'll see certain runes start to pop up on it. And it'll sort of thrum and throb, and she'll clock that immediately. And then things will escalate. They will attempt to forcibly, obviously, remove her from these lands. And that is when I want the witch to start turning the forest against this band of knights. And we're going to have like knights out in the forest getting hammered by sort of very natural horror. So I want...
Okay, like a bog or something like that, and roots trembling.
Bog is a great shout. Bogs are absolutely terrifying, quicksand style. So I want, like, especially when you're in armour, that would be amazing, man.
Or like roots crushing the armour.
Yeah, I'm doing the straps on the greaves and the bracers.
And it's just crushing, so you get the helmet just getting crushed until the gore oozes out of the eye slips and stuff like that.
Right, you know the pointy suits of armour helmets with all of the holes in them? Like just...
like a mince.
Yeah, like one of those Play-Doh things you had as a kid where you pull the lever and it...
What happens? What's the deal with the prisoner?
Well, so... No, you're not. That's the perfect absolutely perfect question to ask when I introduced him and then just left him out. I was like, he's just going to lie there for the whole film, unfazed.
Just watching all this unfold
like,
around him.
Oh, shit. Just like every now and again, he'll pick a leaf up and just put it on his skin to try and disguise himself. Really slowly, man.
Just having an intense stare off with a squirrel or something like that. Just do not move. It's visions based on movement.
Well, so this is the dude. So I want this guy, the prisoner. I want to obviously be the complete polar opposite to the knights that have brought him. Yeah. He was someone who was also living off the land, not in the primal, has been here since the land was created kind of a way that the witch is, but he was living on his own. He wasn't paying money or taxes or anything like that to anyone, man. He was basically what we would call an off-gridder, I guess, or whatever, and just living from the land, using its natural remedies, understanding the land and how to work with the land. And he was picked up as an outcast by these knights as they were cutting their swathe of brutality and ignorance throughout the forest. And so I want him to, after much carnage, he has witnessed much carnage. He's seen men turn into trees as the roots come up from the ground and slowly encapsulate them, and so all that's left is a face. You know, when you see like faces in knots in trees, all that's left is that sort of just slightly obscured version of what they used to be. He's seen the men crushed by the roots. Maybe as the man is consumed by the bog, he also turns to bog and just flows out a bit like the senator at the end of X-Men or Swamp Thing or something like that.
We want one who perhaps takes even greater pleasure than the others in hunting, to be horribly mauled by some stags or something like that.
Yes. Oh, dude, I can see the outline of the two stags stabbing into him and then lifting their heads and pulling up and almost halving him maybe, or we just see the entrails strung between the two in a beautiful stark outline. So, our prisoner will have witnessed all of these things and rightly assumes, I guess, that he's going to be next as one by one the people are picked off and he's going to be begging them to release him. And then as the witch reveals herself to him, whereas all of the other men from the knight's point of view when they've been picked off one by one, she's been a crone, the typical what one would expect from a witch, but when she reveals herself to our prisoner, he sees what she actually is, and that is just a normal woman.
Normal person.
Yeah, a normal woman in the middle of the forest. And those two then sort of become simpatico. And that is where they decide to stake their claim and set their stall at the table underneath the great mossy house where the witch lives. And that's going to be how the inn was first established, because we are now looking at his great grandfather, who hooked up with the witch in the most wonderful mutual way and lived happily ever after, just living off of the land there until eventually mankind encroached on it. And that's when the inn was built. So that's our first story.
Nice.
Knights versus witches, gore all over the place, bit dog soldiers-y, lots of men running around in forests, that kind of a deal, getting evil deaded by all of the shrubbery. No, shrubbery isn't scary. No, shrubbery is not.
I demand a shrubbery.
Shrubbery? That's not at all scary.
Can we have one where one of the knights is really good at butchering the deer or cooking and preparing the stew, and he's like the third or fourth to go in to chat to her? He doesn't come out or something like that. We forget about him, and everyone else has been horribly killed, and the guy goes in, or we find a survivor goes into the earth mound to try and kill the witch or whoever, or escape from whatever's happening, and turns and he sees that he is in a pot. So he's cooked himself, like he's climbed into her stew and is gradually boiling himself alive.
Yes!
She's like totally like got inside his mind.
Him, man. Yeah,
he becomes his own recipe, and he's just sat there.
Yeah, and like sweat pouring off of him. Then we see his like flesh start to blister and peel back, and as it maybe
the guy tries to pull him out, and he's just
it just sloughs off. Like in We Were Soldiers. Absolutely. Yes. Dude.
He's cooked himself.
Dude, he's his own recipe is the best thing I'm going to hear tonight. I'm just putting that out there, man. That was, oh yes. So we'll have that. And there we go. That's the first tale, man.
Loving it. I love Lincoln's Inn so far.
So we cut back to the pub. He's holding court again. We start to play up how sad and melancholy Mr. Lincoln feels in...
Okay.
the fact that he hasn't got his own stories to tell. We're going to start building that up as he's talking of all of his ancestors,
great historic deeds,
and the amazing things that they have been up to. As I said at the start, he really believes this, man. It doesn't look like a performance, especially now we come back and we see what is taken out of him telling that story. He's pulling another pint, and he's there's no greater quarry, no keener foe than the wolf. Now, what was a merchant shack and a happy home, it built and grew and formally became the Lincoln's Inn. And in it lived Sally Lincoln, his great-great-great-great-grandmother. So we cut to Sally Lincoln, who's now in a very established, almost familiar-looking inn that we've seen from our opening. And clearly kick-out time, and this is, let's say, around the region of 1800, somewhere like that. Just about to lock the front door of the inn when a wounded man crashes through the door begging for help. Please, miss, please, miss, please. You must understand. I need your help. He's beside himself, clearly bloody from a nasty wound in his side as well. And he won't quite say what's up. He says I got thrown off my horse, and he says I got attacked by robbers. He's got loads of stories. He's not quite with himself. He doesn't quite know what's happening on. He's that terrified. What am I doing here?
I was just on the moors. Get out.
Yeah. God, my nails are getting long. No, he's Sally is a very kindly sort because, of course, she'll give help to those that need it, and he clearly does, man. He starts to bring himself together a lot more, starts to calm down, starts to thank her so profusely and say, I'm so sorry, I've nothing on my person. I've no idea where my bodkin, I don't know what you kept money in back in the day, man. Where my purse. There we go. Right there. I have no idea where my purse is. I've lost everything. Maybe when they robbed me or my horse threw me or whatever the hell goes on, man. And there's a really nice bonding. We'll play the bonding. We'll play a really nice, and it's not a meet cute because it ain't cute, but the two find some understanding in each other. And he sings this really beautiful song, man. And we have this lovely moment of complete peace where we're just sort of panning round, the two of them sat there with him singing this absolutely gorgeous sort of old folk standard. And just as it's coming to a close, we hear a massive clattering of hooves and shouts and noises from outside. And he immediately, bang, there's back to the raw terror that we saw the minute he came in the door, man. And he's like, right, you must hide me. You must hide me, please, miss, please. So pulls back the cellar, says, look, you find yourself whatever comfort and hide yourself down there if you can. And she slams the door shut.
Maybe she's got a priest's hole.
Right, how big are they? The tiny little...
Yeah, they're inside like fireplaces.
Like in a fireplace,
yeah,
yes.
That kind of thing, yeah.
Brilliant. Yep, okay, yes, absolutely. She does that. He's down there, he's squared away, and doors are bolted, blinds are shut, candles are blown out, and she looks out, and we see sort of dressed almost in Witchfinder General kind of outfits, man.
I was hoping it's going to be a Witchfinder General type dude.
Big buckles, like loads of buckles everywhere, man. And so we see the leader of this group, like McCabe or something like that, man. Yeah. And we see him and his posse of men, and they've got their torchlights, and they're clattering with their great swords and muskets. And so as he's bellowing his demands for whoever is inside this inn, show yourselves.
By the power of God.
Yes. And as he's saying, by the power of God, we see that giant crucifix brought up behind him, winched up by his men.
Yes.
Lit by flame, man. And she's like, nah. She's much more dramatic. She's like, nah, I'm all right.
I don't think so. Nah. Sign on the door says closed.
Yeah, sorry, dudes.
Sorry.
So she's like, absolutely no, there's no way you're coming. I haven't seen any young man. And she's shouting all of this from around side of the curtain.
But I never mentioned a young man.
Oh! Quick, young man, you must run. Have I not got you now? You do indeed have me, sir, but still you cannot come in this inn. And so we have a very, very quick, because he ain't messing around, man. He's like, he's God's own advocate, man. So he's like, right, then we'll come in by whatever means we have to. And then we cut to...
by God, we shall huff and we shall puff.
Oh, dude, I kind of like that though. Like little piglet. Oh, little piglet. And then
Are you in there?
bang, his soldiers are at the door.
Little piglet, shall we huff?
Oh, little piglet.
Shall we puff?
Bang! On the door, it's
I mean,
rattling.
it is Sean Bean, right?
No, it's Ralph Ineson.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Ralph Innocent,
Yeah.
little piglet.
Little pig. I can't get that deep. That beautiful resonant
Little
voice,
piglet.
man. Little piglet.
Shall we blow the door in?
So we get a little bit of now, just like the sort of, I'm thinking Revenge, really good horror movie from maybe 5 years ago. Guess what it's about? But it had a really good home invasion, someone scrabbling against, say, 5 or 6 attackers and doing it completely bloodily and violently and sloppily, but in a really satisfying way. It's a really good touch point for this. So we get a bit of that. We'll dispatch a couple of the posse that way, but then they overpower. In walks Mr. Spool, and he demands to know. He knows now, like, he's in here. So tell us where he is. Like, Missy, you will be saving yourself much pain if you open that mouth and the next thing that comes out is his location. That kind of stuff, man. Yeah. And he pulls out this long, wicked-looking silver dagger, and he holds it about. Oh yeah. And he's like, he says something like horrifically horrible, like, I am very skilled at making sweet little doves call out for me. Will you call out for me, little dove? And he's getting the knife closer and closer. And just as he does, we hear a scream. We hear something, a commotion from down in the priest hole.
Yes.
What was that noise? He sends one of his men immediately to get it, and he's waiting at the top. He ain't going. He might have gone to his side, but he's like, no. Bill, can you have a butcher's, mate?
Before that, can he be like, I am the most fearless, respected beard of all the witch hunters. Here's the noise. You go investigate it.
Yeah, Baxter, get your son down there, you useless cur.
But, sir, I thought it was your time. I went
Down
last
there,
time.
I command.
But, sir, Teddington's go.
Yeah, I had to do the witch last week.
I did last time.
I went inside that tree that was small from the outside but massive in. It was a nightmare.
I got home late. I was hell to pay.
I scuffed my trousers, got grass on my knees. It's still coming out. But by this time, the werewolves come out and eating everyone else. Yeah. Oh no! Don't spoil the werewolf, Luke. Oh shit!
We'd never see it coming.
No, there hasn't been any silver or howling or injured men coming in from the moors into a pub. And so, right, they pull back the hearth. Grating scrape, but even over the amount of noise this thing's making as they're tugging it free, you can hear the snufflings and like true anguish is occurring down there, man. And there's whimpering, there's tears, there's sort of like, we can just about hear words. And right, down there you go. They light a lantern and they start to go down the steps peering. You got Baxter up first, and he's absolutely. You can hear the clanking. He's still got the.
I don't like it. I don't rightly know.
In all of God's great earth, why me? And he's clanking and.
It's because I burnt the broth at lunch, isn't it? You've always had it in for me.
It's not bloody fair. I just thought because we were cousins, you might cut me some slack, but that's not the point, is it? I said he starts to go down. You got the trembling clanking of the old
more
oil
and more
lamp.
echoey. Cut to the outside, you can still hear its echoey whines.
And you just see like the lamp light just dim as he goes deeper and deeper. I bloody knew it! Got to get blood out now as well as the grass. Hey, bloody hell to pay. Oh, my arm! Oh, no bother, I'm dead.
They're just slightly trying to close the priest out to shut it. Do my blood head in.
So, like, poor little Baxter, he goes on his journey. He's got 2 of the guys with him. And clanking lamplight, and we get to see sort of the passage revealed by the flickering light. So it's all a little bit like comes in fits and starts. And we open out into a little bit of a more open room. I was going to say auditorium, that's not quite right. The poor guy has got his back to us, and he's getting slowly more and more revealed by the lamplight. And then we start to witness the American Werewolf in London style transformation.
I was gonna say, if you didn't show the
We've
transformation,
got to have that, and
man,
it's going to be
that.
so. It's going to start by lamplight, and then Baxter will get far too terrified. He reaches for a crucifix, drops the lamp explodes in flames, and so we get
poor Baxter, like Frank Spencer. Oh bloody hell, my favourite lamp!
I'm all thumbs today. I bloody knew I got out on the wrong side of bed. Now look at me, a complete calamity. Okay.
Father said nothing good will ever come from me.
He was bloody right.
He was bloody right. Bloody knew it.
Yeah, I want him to do like a juggle with the lamp, and some of the oil spills on him, catches him on fire. So he drops it, and we get to see the transformation, thanks to the fire that's sort of like raging down in the basement.
And like great shadows as well as the transformation happens.
Exactly,
like flickering
man.
one.
And I think the last shadow I would like is the howl, because we obviously, when the transformation's happy, werewolves are always so chuffed, man, that they've like managed to come out of their human form. They're always like, oh yeah,
howls, turns around, and the howl is so powerful, blows out the lamp. Oh, scene.
And so, like, of course, we got whatever his name was up top, man, and he's
Spall.
like, by God's name, what is this trickery? He's
You
not that
bastard.
Yeah, you bastard, you absolute toe rag. And then we get the guttural growl and padding as our wolf starts to emerge, and it gets closer and closer.
Some scraping on that.
The Witchfinder General will start to proselytise, man, and he will think that the power of Christ is within him and that he can bat any of this away as his men are trembling behind him.
Holy water starts coming out. And
then really the only thing he needs is the goddamn silver dagger, man. But he's kind of forgetting this. He is so wrapped up in his own self-belief that he can vanquish this beast himself, man. He's taken will-o'-the-wisps and banshees and all sorts previously. He can certainly take a dog man. That's nothing for this dude, man. So we're going to get this absolute bellowing sermon that's happening as the head rolls out, and like his men are starting to get further and further back away from him.
Kicking up on the wall. It's almost like in the kind of Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, where the shadow has its own kind of life.
Yes.
So the shadow of the wolf kind of comes
slinks
out first.
forwards, before it even appears.
Over the wall.
Yes.
Even the woman, Sally's backing away. She's terrified, doesn't know what's going on.
So then complete carnage, man. We got muskets, one-shot muskets, obviously, because we're back in the day, going off and then being batted out of hands, along with the hand itself.
I want a shot of someone coming up to Spall, like one of his men, like his hands on his shoulders to try and like save me. We get a POV shot of Spall looking at the scared man, and the scared man just gets ripped in half to reveal the werewolf behind him.
Oh yes, I love people getting ripped in half. Yes.
Just
definitely.
right in front of him.
Yeah, and all of this practical, like there's sort of like just
claws come out through the mouth, whole head.
Oh yes,
Back of the head.
yes.
Wolf is there.
And so actually that might be. We're going to roll a tiny little bit back. There is one guy who comes out of the priest hole alive, and he is the guy who gets ripped in half to reveal the wolf, maybe.
Yeah.
Right, so then musket, sword, fire, smoke, confusion. Sally is...
Small tavern, kind of desperado.
Yeah,
tables
getting...
tables going over.
Exactly that, man.
It's not necessarily slapstick moments, but like someone goes to swing with a sword, but the sword gets stuck in the beam.
Oh, yes.
And so the confinement, they're not used to fighting in such a small...
and they thought it'd be easy peasy, man. Like, all we've got to do is get the tavern owner out and take the dude. Simple, and we'll run him through. Like, we already nearly finished him.
Maybe a few of them accidentally kill each other by mistake.
Have someone run someone through accidentally through the smoke because they just see a shape coming at them, all of that. Yeah. And Sally is like... like absolutely ducked under about all of the tables she can find, man. And in some of this chaos, he is still proselytising the Witchfinder General. He is still giving it some welly, man. And the wolf comes to him, and it's just him and the wolf. And it bats him away with a backhand. He lands sort of very close to Sally, and the silver dagger spins around very close to her, obviously. And then he's back up and he's proselytising, and then the wolf is just going to lean forward and put his jaws around his head and gone. And then
Fountains of blood, yes.
coming out the top of the neck, which find a general slumps. Sally is there now, covered in blood, looking directly at the wolf, man. And the wolf is coming. There's no man. It's pure animal. It wants
Can't
nothing.
reach it. Yeah.
Or can you? Because Sally reaches down and starts to sing the song that he sang her when he first came in.
She's a whisperer.
And it's just very like... what
was it again? What was it?
Can you tell me yeah. She's there testing pitch. Since my baby.
Well, same key, obviously.
And so she sings it, lulls just, it just gets through just enough for her to reach out.
The eyes.
And it goes from like the cat, like the wolf and eye switches just for a glimmer to those sweet eyes of the young man who came in earlier.
A little whimper from the wolf.
And then
a supplicating kind of thing.
Yeah, almost. But it kind of knows it's being tricked, man. It knows that the man inside it's being talked to. It doesn't like that. And as she's singing, she's reaching back for anything. Finds the dagger, and as she plunges it straight into its heart. And I'm so sorry, I know. And
she was.
It was her or the wolf, man. And then as we should always see in these werewolf movies, when a wolf is slain, it turns back to the man or the person it was, obviously. And so she manages to guide him, much as she's shown the tenderness to him as he came in for succour and for healing. She shows him that exact same kindness as he leaves this world in her arms.
Nice.
And then
what about all the other dead people who are been bitten by werewolves? Won't they then become werewolves?
She then, she then goes around and stabs every one of them.
Or maybe they're just obliterated. There's no
they're properly like more mauled than man kind of a thing. They are absolutely in bits.
Maybe there is one who knows that he's still alive at the end, and he kills himself.
Yeah,
like he's been ripped up. He knows he's going to turn and shoots himself. I don't know.
Yeah. Last musket left, man. And there's no coming back from what this wolf has unleashed on them.
Nice.
And then we fade back, and obviously in the bar, mounted on the back is the silver dagger tucked away with all the other trinkets, man. And we pan back down. So that's chapter 2 done, man. We go back and we introduce the third tale, man. So he goes to the back of the bar and he gets out reaches up high into the dusty booze shelves and he pulls out a little cufflink box. And he walks forward and he pulls it open, and in there, instead of cufflinks, are 2 elongated canine teeth. And he throws them down on the bar.
I think instead of cufflinks, 2 eyeballs. Goggly eyes.
And he casts them into the ocean.
Sorry.
Oh no, it's just like a Jack in the Box comes out. He goes, got ya.
That's what the Joker's laugh from.
And so he casts like the teeth down onto the bar, like sort of a couple of dice, and they rattle and roll and bounce along, and then just sit there in front of the captivated now audience. And one of them leans over and goes, "Oh, it's about time he got to the vampire." Yeah. And the minute he does that, he spins around and he makes a sign of the evil eye with his fingers, spits through it at them, and hush your mouth. I gave you a witch, I gave you the wolf, and a vampire's what you clamour for. A tale of the lowest, bottom-feeding, parasitical. There is no honour, no heart, and no quarry in a vampire. I would do better to tell you a tale of the plague rats that ran amok around and about the pantry here back in 1666. Vampires. He's disgusted. Disgusted that he has to tell this
Tell you what, though, I'm all on board for vampires.
Oh, 100%, mate. Like, we're all waiting for the toothy ones, man. And he says, but I swore an oath to my blood, to my foremothers and my forefathers, that I carry the tale of this in.
It's a lot of parents.
And those toothed vermin are a part of it. That much is true. And this one's closer to home. And he says, so forgive my tears should they fall. My grandfather, God rest his soul, met his end 64 years to this day. And then we cut down to the inn, and we're sort of looking, I guess, to the like late 60s or somewhere like that, maybe, I reckon, give or take, man. And his grandfather is just funneling out the last of the Halloween sort of big bop and social that they were holding at the Lincoln's Inn. So we see the last of these guys like funneling out, man. And then like this big smoking, stinking bus rolls into the car park, backfiring wildly. And this is going to be, we're going to see the granddad now, and we're going to get a couple of like vampires that visit the inn and demand service and blood, man. That's all vampires ever want.
And they have to be invited in though.
Exactly, which he will do, because the part of the inn is there to bring people in, help them out, give them good food. And
nice. Good vibes, good food. Everybody welcome.
Live, laugh, blood.
Yeah.
So we're going to see like a kind of slimy looking counterculture sort of vampire is going to slink his way in under the guise of like, we're a band on the road, man, and we need a place to fix up the van. We're going to be out here. You don't have to give us any rooms. You don't have to give us a pint if you don't want to, man, but we need somewhere to hold up, kind of a thing. And he's going to be suspicious because the grandfather carries these stories as well, man. And we're going to see as the head, sort of like the master, I guess, to use vampire terminology, the master vampire.
The master, yeah.
That's a widely recognised like career in vampiring is getting to master level. So he's going to come in, and we're just going to see the faintest glow. And this is the last time that the beam in the pub glowed, was like when this dude walked past it. We're going to see the faintest red glow that the grandfather sort of clocks, and he's immediately. His back is up, and he's checking to see the silver daggers behind the bar, and he knows that something's going to kick off, man. And I just want a like From Dusk Till Dawny kind of vampire versus barman fight, that we're going to be telling this tale, and we're going to be seeing the events of the grandfather and what happened to him. But as we're doing that, we're going to cut back to him telling the tale, and we're going to cut back to the sound of a van approaching outside as he is telling the story. Right. And some of the patrons are going to be like, oh, he's gone overboard this year, man. He's gone all 4D on us, for Christ's sake. And that's going to be, we're going to keep seeding this through as he is telling the story of his grandfather, who had to come through with no Christian faith to speak of, and only his wits about him to try and get out of this situation, which he never does, because we know 64 years ago to this day he died, man. So we're going to have like a real Robert Rodriguez-y fight, bar fight, man, where like it's vampire versus him. We see him and the master coming off against each other. First, he's going to, he'll best the master enough to like slam his head against the beam, and we'll see the master's front teeth like stick in almost like nails. And then he's going to like boot the side of his head, and we're just going to see those two teeth left in the beam as evidence, kind of a thing.
Amazing.
And then while the master's like he's gouting blood and absolutely horrified, a mere mortal could do this to him, we're going to see like him like get the most potent booze he can off the back shelf, chuck it at the master, set him on fire. And this is where the master is going to escape doing a fire run, because we like to get that in every episode. But we're also going to see the fact that before he does, he is not going to leave without slicing the throat of the grandfather and letting him bleed out at the bar. And that's his last action he can do. And then he flies off into the night, kind of a thing, and that's him gone, man. And then we'll cut back to the story being wrapped up and him being very emotional because it's about his grandfather. And that's when the doors to the inn are going to open, and in is going to walk the master from his grandfather's tale. And he's going to say, he'll walk to the bar and he'll like,
come from my teeth.
Exactly, mate. Exactly that, man. Like, he'll come to the bar and he'll be like, I do believe you have my teeth. And that is when we'll kick off. And that is when, like, everyone is going to realise all of these stories are true. Like George,
the beam glows.
Yeah, the beam is kicking off. George Lincoln suddenly, like, instead of being terrified, is like, oh, at last I've got like my chance to add to the myth.
I've been waiting for this.
This is absolutely sick, man. And I've got
He's got a trunk full of weapons waiting for this very moment. He is totally prepped.
It's all true, man. And he's going to like ash the hell out of this situation. Ash and Evil Dead the hell out of this situation. And he's going to bring the pain to these vampires, man. But while this is happening, our poor disbelieving patrons are going to be absolutely, destroyed in a very from dusk till dawny kind of way, man. Limbs being torn off. We'll have a little chase around the inn itself in a Dog Soldiers finale kind of way, where people are kicking through plasterboard to just escape the things that are chasing him. It's completely and utterly frantic, man. And then what? At some point, and this is where it's getting slightly loosey-goosey, as you can tell, man. And at some point, I want the beam to be shattered. I want the master vampire to take someone and just throw them into it so hard. After all of the years, it just splinters and shatters, man. And then this, the splintered beam is going to be the way that
the stake.
Exactly that, man. This is how he's going to start to dispatch some of the vampires. And he'll rip a chunk off of it, almost like a Louisville slugger.
Yeah.
And he's going to have this totem, which he is going to start to use. And he's beating the vampires with it, and runes are being seared onto their skin as he's smacking them about. And what I want is for the carnage within the inn to be so great, and the fact that the support beam for the inn has been snapped in twain, man. We're going to have a great collapse, a bit like at the end of Dog Soldiers, when the entire place is absolutely leveled to the ground. Yeah. It's time for Mr. Lincoln to move on to better things, man. So he is going to come out of the carnage. He's going to have the silver dagger. He's going to have
the mincemeat helmet.
Yeah, mincemeat helmet, just for memories. It's not practical, but it means a lot, man. And he's going to have a great chunk of the beam. And I kind of want him to become a wandering dispeller of all things evil. And he has
a witch speller.
Exactly. And he's got his dagger. He's got his great lump of splintered beam, which he's going to whittle down into genuinely a bat form, but the pommel is a stake, so it will take out anything it needs to, man. Yeah. And he'll vanquish the vampire. We'll see. He'll take the skull. The skull with those missing canines, that'll be another trophy that he takes and whacks in the boot of his Volvo estate or whatever, man, alongside his great glowing runic club. And he's going to leave the scene of that destroyed smouldering Lincoln's Inn with the dead vampires. And I'm so sorry, all the dead patrons, but I needed more gore in this. Yeah. And he's just going to drive off into the night set.
The other day while I was born, I was dead of the moon.
I just look him straight in the eye and I say, have you paid your dues? I say, you're goddamn right I have.
The check is in the mail. With the vampire thing, with the granddad, because I thought you were going to go a different way with that the granddad became the vampire.
And then came back.
George's whole thing was to get people to feed the granddad. So,
oh my God, man!
George at the end is he locks the doors, and now that you all are in, and then the granddad or whomever comes up to eat everybody.
Oh my God!
I like it. Yeah, my B movie ending would have been. George is actually a vampire and he's brought everyone there.
Well, it was I wanted to have a dude who we followed who got to be a badass. I know Neil Marshall wanted to do at the end of Dog Soldiers. He wanted the dude who survived to go on to have all of these other supernatural adventures. And I was like, even though I never got to see any of that, I saw it in my head, and I like it when films just give you that little taster and then end on, like you said, bow down, dow dow.
That was your preferred. Of the 3 or 4 endings for Madame Fenella, I think your preferred one was Sister Van Essen going off to be a Cenobite hunting Ronin.
Yep. Please, I love it.
It's compelling, isn't it, for a B movie ending to just go off and.
You've opened my imagination. You haven't put a close on it, man. That's beautiful. And there we go. That is the Lincoln's Inn, a horror anthology.
I loved it. So for George Lincoln, I started off immediately with Brian Cox, but knowing that he's going to be some vampire hunting. Psycho, I have to readjust. Midway through, I changed into Nick Frost. I was just thinking of nice dudes who could spin a yarn in a pub.
I like Nick Frost, man. He can pack a punch as well, man. Yeah, absolutely.
I can imagine him as the landlord.
I had. I thought it was. I also sort of aged him up because I was thinking Ian McShane because he's got that beautiful rolling, that tenor, that delivery, that I can imagine him wielding a massive club kind of a thing. But then the more like that he got involved, the more I was like, I don't know, man. Maybe James Purefoy was what I was thinking. Going back to like the Solomon Kane, he was amazing in that. That was a real great slice of horror, man. And he's got that like nice. He's got a real sweet. He's very handsome, but he's got a sweetness to his face and like a bit of West Country that just he's very likable as well as being very handsome. And I can believe him being in a normal role like Fisherman's Friends as much as I can in Solomon Kane kind of a thing.
Yeah. Purefoy's a good choice. For the werewolf dude, I had Billy Boyd, who was one of the hobbits in Lord of the Rings, because he could sing and he's quite sweet.
Yes.
But then I also had Johnny Flynn, who was also got a beautiful singing voice, and he could probably write a really beautiful folk song to go with it as well.
I'm having it.
He could do the whole soundtrack. We'll have Johnny Flynn can do the whole soundtrack.
Definitely. Yeah, dude, that's a great show. I had Stephen Graham, I prefer, because he's a bit wolfy. Johnny Flynn, he's definitely Johnny, in a good way, Stephen, if you're listening. He's a bit wolfy, he is. You wouldn't toss him as far as I could throw him. Yeah, dude, Johnny Flynn, 100%. That's a really good, really good shout. And fits perfectly with that folk countryside feel that I want to sort of like spin through this.
Directors?
Okay.
I've got one.
Well, I wasn't sure whether I wanted to do a director for each section, as they do with Twilight Zone, the movie, and things like that. That's so I was thinking, like, for the witch section, and it's probably quite obvious, but David Lowery,
great shout.
Get that Green Knight energy. He did that so well. Like and he'd have the look and the land and all of that kind of folkiness that he managed to imbue in the atmosphere. Bang on. The werewolf section, because it goes completely 400% mad, I want Gareth Evans, because I think he's really good at delivering that, man. And he can handle horror really well. I dug a lot of Apostle. I liked his section in VHS. I think the first VHS he did was great.
Standout.
And then for the vampire section, I was thinking like David Slade, but only because of 30 Days of Night, which is one of my favourite vampire films. But then I went back and was like, well, why not just get Neil Marshall in, because I've ripped him off for it, so let's have him in to do it.
All right. I have one director to do all of it, so that's a nice contrast to yours.
Lovely. Yep.
So I was thinking of Neil Jordan, obviously, did Interview with the Vampire, but also did The Company of Wolves. And he's got a great kind of a lovely mix of fantastical and real world kind of lived in grittiness, and I think he'd bring a lot of folkiness to it in the best possible way. He'll bring the folktale magic to each segment. If you were to have one director to do all of it, but I quite like the three. Wicked, I loved it. Thank you so much. I was suitably spooked and excited and chilled to the very bone. So for My Clementine, you gave a list of 3 films to wet the whistle. So if I were to do the same, I would suggest watching, before the main picture, I would suggest watching Carrie, The Craft, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. Consider my whistle whetted, sir.
Okay, so for My Clementine, now it's going to be a very bare bones structure, because I wanted originally a lean 90-minute movie, 90-minute horror movie, but as is my way, just kind of built and built and built. So I'm going to pitch the movie, but I might pitch it as a trilogy of movies.
Oh, dude, fitting for a horror episode as well. Absolutely.
There we go. So I'll go through there's 3 different time periods, and I broke them down into kind of as a kind of victory lap of horror, or a homage to horrors. They've got different types, I guess. So the first one will be in the 1950s. This is going to be very much the Stephen King kind of territory. And I'm basically just going to rip off Carrie, I guess. So it will start with a high schooler called Posey, and she is an outsider. She lives on the other part of town, maybe in like a very poor part of town, maybe in like a shack in the woods, or maybe like a trailer park. But she still goes to a standard kind of high school. And she's considered an outsider. She's considered a weirdo by the other kids. Social interactions aren't quite up to snuff. She wants to get involved. She wants to kind of be, but she just can't do it. It's not right. She's an outsider. She's pushed around, obviously, by the bullies, and I'm thinking that she might be into some witchcrafty kind of stuff, some Wiccan stuff. She likes to commune with nature, and she likes to
Tarot cards.
And she finds a Ouija board. Maybe she's got a couple of friends who are kind of on the fence about the whole thing. They do it, but only as a laugh, but she's a bit more serious about it.
Yeah.
And she finds an old Ouija board in the Stephen King kind of way, a bit like Christine. She finds after bad day at school.
It finds her, man.
It finds
she
her.
does not
calls
find
out
it.
to her.
Yeah.
It's in the window of a shop when no one else can see it, that kind of thing, and it's just calling to her.
Or a garage sale she walks past on the way to get to her trailer.
Yeah, it's just there looking perfectly. The sun glints off the little board and reflects into her
the golden
eye
lettering.
And kind of dazzle her.
Yep.
Yes. And so she takes this Ouija board and she gets contacted by a demon. This is where I'm going to need your help, because it's going to need a Stephen King.
Is this because I'm really good at contacting demons? Because Larm will not fuck off, man.
I want the Ouija board demon to have a very suitable Stephen King kind of name. So, for example, Captain Trips was the disease in The Stand. I can't remember
Mr. Snoogie?
Mr. Snoogie. Okay, fair enough. They become friends. She talks to it. They communicate. I want Posey to kind of start a secret relationship with maybe a jock or a high schooler who, maybe in a she's all that kind of way, kind of gets, is a dare to go out with her, or they have a connection maybe because they went to the same primary school, where they grew up together a little bit, but he's now this jock.
Yeah, well, he moved away from, he was like next door, living next door to her, but because of his jockiness and his jock abilities, he's got scholarships, he's moved over to the better side of town, man, but still
he's the big town prospect, and he's the jock, and then she has a dalliance with the jock. So I think maybe the Ouija board might instruct her to get pregnant. I was thinking that maybe she could create like a love potion or something for the jock.
But I want his, when he is under the influence of it, to be a bit like there was a Buffy episode, I think, when Xander got Willow to brew a love potion or found it in her spell book, and then it all went really bad because it got proper strange, people almost tearing his flesh off like perfume, that kind of a thing. I'd like it to start affecting the jock beyond just in a very primal, horrible sort of
nice. Okay.
Over the top, crazy way, and everyone at the party is a little bit like, what the fuck is going on with this guy, man?
So she does, eventually she falls pregnant, she starts changing, she starts feeling a lot more attractive to other people. There's a glow about her, and she calls the child Clementine, and she's got this whole history of this child inside her. She's not just a baby. She's got this whole future mapped out for it. They said, "Oh, you've even named it already?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's called Clementine because the baby told me that was her name." And is she still incommunicado with the demon as well? Is she checking in? How is that relationship? Is she going to be? Yeah, so they speak. She speaks to this. Yeah, it's almost like it's her physician. She speaks to the Ouija board, and it's contacting her and telling her,
And she'll go up there. I want her to be of floods of tears and I'm pregnant, and then just it to spell out good.
Yes, something like that. Yeah,
no, not phased at all, and then start to say
all part of the plan.
Yeah.
And then obviously the boyfriend finds out about the jock finds out about this, and he tricks her to go with him to a doctor who's going to examine her to make sure that everything's okay, and he tricks her into a backstreet abortion. But luckily, when she realizes what's going on, she luckily escapes from the situation. Maybe the boyfriend's just dumped her off there, and he kind of doesn't really give a shit. The love potion's worked off. He just wants nothing to do with her anymore, and also she's a bit weird. So
has she got any powers coming from does the demon ever intervene in the real world outside of their consultations? Carry on. So sorry, sir.
That's okay. So she luckily escapes from the situation, and then later on, maybe that evening or something, the backstreet physician dies horribly by accident. I'm thinking some kind of Final Destination style series of events totally explainable as an absolute accident, like the Omen,
He
for
sleeps
example.
underneath all of his scalpel collection, and it's all mounted on a lovely board above him.
In his new house, right next door to an overpass railway. It's just rumbling, and every day the scalpels get closer and closer towards the edge of the shelf above his face.
Yeah, there's just like a little bit of dust on the headboard where the screw is coming loose from the wall that builds over time.
So yeah, he will die horribly by some kind of
And I
accident.
think her escape from that situation should also be there should be something smashes in the back room, or there's a fire that starts in the kitchen. There is something that happens that draws his attention so she can get out, that is clearly the work of Mr. Snoogles.
Mr. Snoogles. And then, he dies horribly. But as he's dying, or the last thing he sees is her. So maybe it's outside and he gets... I was thinking he's going to get hung by something, and he's dangling there. She's in the street or something like that.
Could he? I'm trying to think. It can't be an elevator. I want his necktie to get caught. Necktie. He'll have a horrible stained, disgusting, fetid necktie that he's always mopping his mouth at when he's talking to her as well. And this is like a thing that he does, and then I want that to get caught in something, and then to
one of
hoist
those
him up.
big elevators with the grating kind of
that's it. Yeah, you just sit like and that's it, man.
So
and
we've
she
gone
just
very Omen.
Flippin' oath, man. Yes.
Yeah. So the last thing he sees as he's hanging is Posies staring.
And she just stood like across the road, top lit by a street light, bogging him out, man, as he's like, and then
she continues the pregnancy, getting more and more involved with Mr. Snoogles, acting more erratically and weirdly around school or around town, this small town. And the bullies, led now by the boyfriend who's disgusted at his behaviour, what he did, and realises that he probably was drugged or whatever. He and his mates, another horrible, lots of horrible things happen to this woman. I was thinking they're in
it's carriers. Yeah.
He and his jock mates, maybe with some of their girlfriends, they're in one of their like 1950s hot rod cars or something, and they're just chasing her home, driving quite slowly, but and she's holding a baby and running away, holding Clementine, and they want to scare her, not kill her, but they want to really, really scare her.
But kids being stupid and amping themselves
they just
up.
Take it way too far.
Yeah, Lord of the Flies style thing, man, yeah.
But then as they maybe going to run her down or something like that, or maybe they just wing her and she like falls on the ground and they're like, oh, that was a bit too close. And then again, another Final Destination style accident happens to the car with the people in it, maybe in the high street, so there are witnesses, and it's just this bloodbath of maybe the car just gets taken out by a juggernaut that just seems to appear out of nowhere and it's just running through the town.
And it's got the maximum overdrive sort of Joker face on the front.
Snoogles Express. The 50s element of this is quite sparse, so this might work in a kind of flashbacks to the next one, but we'll get to it.
Okay, yeah.
The small town mourns the funeral because, they were prized jocks and people blame her, and she kind of gets ostracized even further. She's bullied by the kids. The end of this film, or this segment of the story, is the bullies catch up with her finally, and they fake her suicide. They try to, slit her wrists or anything like that. But she's found just in time, and she wakes up, and the doctors say that the baby died, and she's obviously distraught, and she's totally lost her mind. So unfortunately, she gets committed to an asylum because she's a bit of a weirdo. She's
50s logic.
Downtown, 50s logic.
She's hysterical.
So let's put some electrodes in her head and chuck her in an asylum. And the B movie ending of the film is that it cuts to like an adoption centre and
Sorry, I don't know what that was.
There's a baby goat has taken over Luke.
I think it's a tiny faraway donkey. I didn't mean it. That was my scary B-movie ending baby cry. I fluffed it.
So the ending would be an adoption centre, and two people are looking through the glass window at all the babies, and they see one, and it's got Clementine written. So obviously the baby is alive, and it was just taken away from her.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the 1950s section, and obviously we will populate it with loads of tropes from Stephen King.
Yeah,
like
we got
bullies,
greasers, jocks, bullies, nerds,
high school.
sweet kids, outsiders, man. Yep. Mm-hmm. And we'll give her a couple of, like you said, we've got the two, we get to witness her decline and further obsession with Mr. Snoogles via the two friends that she has that then drift away. We'll have those guys who start off, and then we'll have there'll be that beautifully horrible sort of I'm very scared of Ouija boards. Like there used to be one in the loft, and this isn't going to be. I know we're not there and now, but like that just the knowledge that there was one in the loft was very scary to me, man. Because I was like, that's, and I still don't think I would to this day like do anything with one. That's how no. Man. And then part of that, this is what I had to suffer through while you were asleep during Paranormal Activity, by the way, because there was Ouija boards on it that catch fire. But we'll have something like that with the two friends. There'll be a horrible event where the demon shows too much of himself to all three, because he gets maybe a little bit arrogant and thinks maybe I can have three to my brood and not just the one.
My brood,
and that is when they are peace out. Never coming back. Then no more talking. We are not together anymore. And that's when he then we follow the relationship with her and the jock, and that's our sort of handoff point.
And if we are doing a lot of pastiche from other films, I would like a Saint Maud style devoutness to her pregnancy, that she just gets so obsessed with it and the baby and all the things that she's doing.
And she speaks for Clementine all the time. She's always talking on the behalf of Clementine, like she wouldn't like that. That's not what she wants. There's always this very clear, like you said about the clear line to Clementine's future. She is constantly verbalising that to everyone that she talks to, and that's all she talks about.
Or Danny in The Shining with red rum.
Yep.
Maybe she'll have some affectation of Clementine that she talks to and always carries around. Like she's pregnant, but she buys a pram, or she finds an old pram and she puts a baby in it to like
with a Clementine for a head.
With a Clementine for a head. But originally, people think that it's like cute, but she takes it too far. She's absolutely preparing for it, as if it's a real thing. Like
is she high school? Did we say? Yeah, she'll bring like it to high school, and then the jocks will get hold of this fake kid in this doll, and they'll chuck it, and she will go insane. Like they'll be like
mentally insane,
just like absolutely 55 instead of 5 or whatever, and everyone's like,
my baby,
in the middle of the canteen, you know. Cool. So, bum. We see Clementine. She is resigned to asylum. That's the last we see of her Paul Posey for now. And then we're on to
80s.
Oh, yes. I mean, good.
Well, it might not be 80s. Maybe it shouldn't be 50s. Maybe it should be like 60s.
Say 60s
because Clementine is 16 in this one, so I guess. Anyway, so Clementine is 16 into the 80s, so she's a good kid. She's loved by her foster parents, but they haven't told her that she's adopted.
Yeah.
She's living a good home life. She volunteers in the evenings for extra credit. She volunteers at the hospital, the asylum, I guess. I'm sorry if that's not the appropriate word to say, but the institute.
Well, as it was known in that time, and how they would refer to it in that time. Yeah.
So for some reason, she volunteers. All her other schoolmates who are getting extra credit volunteer, like the library or work in a diner. But she's drawn to it, and she's kind to an old woman who never talks, and she's in the cell, but she reads to her through the door. She's at a high school party again, like wholesome kid. I'm thinking of aged up Regan in The Exorcist at the beginning. When Regan's so lovely and full of light and just chirpy.
Yeah.
And they're just a really sweet kid. I'd like this kind of Clementine to be like that.
Yeah.
High school party. Upstairs in the high school party, someone gets a Ouija board out. And they all start doing it, and it's not something that's Clementine really wants to get involved in. She's fine sitting on the periphery, but it's not really for me. She's just watching and laughing and making fun of all the people playing it. Oh, you pushed it, blah, blah, you did it. And everyone has a go, and that's like kind of the end of the Ouija board, and someone who's leading things says like, who's next? And the plaque immediately on its own spins round and points to Clementine, and she's like, oh, it's a bit weird. I'm going to...
Bill, was that you, Bill? Come on, man.
I imagine like no one's got hands on it. It just moves on its own and points straight to her.
Yep.
And everyone kind of laughs it off, but she's a bit, don't really like it. Then I've got something happens. Brilliant. Well done, me.
It's good to remind yourself that every now and again, though, man. Definitely.
Yeah. So now it goes into like bullet points. Like she goes home and she starts having nightmares, and I want a section because sleepwalking is scary. She sleepwalks or sleep drives to the hospital. She's not quite herself. She's a bit kind of something's changing, I guess, calling, and then she maybe has an argument with her parents, or they sit her down. She comes home one day after work or school, and the parents are sat down, and they've been preparing for this difficult conversation all their lives, and now's the time to have it. And they say that she's adopted, and it doesn't go the way that they thought, because she's such a lovely, wonderful, kind, normally so kind and compassionate. They think it's going to be a difficult conversation, but as adults, they'll be able to get through it. But her reaction is not what they expected, and she kind of freaks out, I guess, and screams and shouts, runs away, goes to her boyfriend. They have sex, maybe for the first time or something. She loses her virginity to her boyfriend, who's probably a nice kid. And they're driving home, just want to go home, driving her back to home, car crash.
Okay. Yeah. Random animal. Snoogans and the dark side have like dominion over animals, man. They can make them do some very bad stuff, like flying into planes, rotors, and all that kind of malarkey, man. Yeah, definitely.
A stag comes out, like maybe it's like
stag definitely
they hit it
through the window,
go the windscreen, and it's like scrabbling around. Boyfriend's dead. She wakes up, and the car's like flipped open. The boyfriend's just like wiped out.
Ding.
Yeah, the lights, the indicator lights,
the blinkers going. Yeah.
She wakes up, eyes blinking, tries to move, can't. Looks down and sees that she's completely impaled, like through her chest with like a telegraph pole or something, like,
or like your branch, whatever.
Completely like, oh fuck. Then we have a scene where she kind of extricates herself from the car, and it's really horrible, and she's screaming and crying, but she gets out, and then she stands up and looks down at herself, and she can see like there's a big hole in her, and like she definitely should be dead, like 100%. She's
dude. The headlight of the car is
like
shining through her hole. And we've got a shot of her silhouetted with that. The light coming through.
There's lots of bits missing in this pitch, but we can start plugging in as I get the bare bones again.
Yeah.
So she should be dead, and in all effects, she is dead. And she walks back home. This is going to get super leaping over stuff now. She walks back home. She's not herself. Murders the foster parents. Like, we're going to Halloween territory now.
Can one of them like reach out to defend themselves, and their hand goes through the hole in her, and like we get a shot from behind of like no, and then just one hand breaking through, and then trembling, and then going limp as he's like the life is strangled out of them, man.
Yeah. Okay, so murders foster parents, then goes to the asylum where she kind of murders her way through the orderlies to get to the padded woman's cell, where she's then she frees the woman who's obviously her mother, an elderly mother, and then they escape. So the idea being that Clementine, a bit like in Highlander, Clementine was human up until...
That's amazing. Yes. I was not expecting that, man. That whipped me round, dude.
In Highlander, they're human until they have their first death, and then they're immortal.
Yeah. Yes.
So Clementine was human until she died, and Mr. Snoogles, who was always inside her, is now...
Born.
So she is now like an undead kind of... zombie, I guess.
Well, no. It's like because her soul has left, that leaves room for Snoogles to come in and take up residence, man.
Yeah.
And because he has already sown the seeds, horribly literally, earlier in the other movie or in the flashbacks, man, like that is just where he switches over.
He's just waiting for it. So he's reunited. Snoogles is reunited with the mother, and they escape the asylum. So that would be like the B movie ending. Obviously, a lot is going to happen that we haven't covered within that.
Absolutely, and we'll really lay into like I want to really capture that 80s, which much like the 50s had this like there are certain. I want that beaming, optimistic, everything's groovy, sweet apple pie. I'm baking muffins for you all. That's how I want her to be. Just lovely when we meet her, man. Like I want and happy and perfect.
Yeah, and then she becomes
destroy that.
She becomes the 80s slasher show. So by the end of it, she's Michael Myers for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
Because I was interested in developing that backstory a little bit to how someone would become this 80s non-unstoppable killing machine.
Yep. Yeah. Like, do we see her imbued with more power and is able to like shove the security guard of the hospital's head through the bars and snap his neck
I was
off? Or is it all...
I don't think so. I was thinking of that film recently called *Malignant*, where I wasn't a huge fan of it. Sorry to the filmmakers, but there's a bit I think towards the end when the malignant part of her takes over and she can do all crazy stuff that is physically impossible. I don't. Other than the fact that she's undead, I still want her to be like more of a normal. Like Michael Myers can survive a lot of damage, but he can't like pick up a car. You know, he can still just stabs people. So the third part of it, it's either the third film or it's the third act, depending on how we reframe it. So this is the slasher part of it now, the third film. It's a straight up kind of body horror slasher time thing. And maybe a couple of years later, Posey and Clementine have come back to town. It's the typical slasher film of teenagers getting picked off, probably set at college or something like that, or at the high school. And Clementine, under a false identity or whatever, she's picking off the children of the bullies, of Posey's bullies from when she was a mum. So it's either their children or their grandchildren. I haven't worked out the time.
Grandchildren, maybe. No, children by that point. Yeah, because she was a child.
I was either thinking of grandchildren or children, because I was thinking in a Stephen King kind of way, maybe earlier on in the middle film, lots of these kids at the high school that Clementine goes to, they go to a lot of funerals. Like a lot of people's parents are dying in accidents or weird ways because Mr. Snoogles is kind of picking people off that upset or hurt Posey or whatever. Yes, in a similar way to in It, when there's just a rash of children's deaths and no one really talks about it. A lot of these parents are getting picked off, but the children are still there. Clementine would be the agent of destruction controlled by Posey, her mother, who goes about acting revenge on the innocent children in a Nightmare on Elm Street kind of way for the sins of the parent. We need an ending.
Well, it's got to be like, do we switch from the POV of Posey and Clem that we've had in the first two acts or movies, and then do we get introduced now? We need a
Luke Skywalker.
The third movie, exactly that, and we don't meet Clem or Posey for quite a while. Yeah. And I just like to build like this good kind of inquisitive, ingenious kid or whatever who's just like clearly a bit switched on. They got a nice group of mates. They got a really good support system. They've got really good friends. They got very healthy relationships. Nothing is bad here, man. There is no twistedness, and we just get to live with them
in
for
their
a bit.
Little club. They're just like paranormal investigators around the town.
Oh God, yes. Oh my God, yes, definitely. Yeah, they're part of like the Milwaukee Murder and Mystery Club or something like that, man. And they just have their little tree house in a Stand By Me kind of fashion, and they just talk about spooky things, man. And like one of them like brings a Ouija board right at the start, and it's kind of like Fright Night as well, where you get the guy who's pretending to be an expert on vampires and things, and then it's like, oh shit, I've got to put my money where my mouth is, man.
Who is it in Halloween?
Pleasance, isn't it?
Pleasance,
Dr. Loomis.
Dr. Loomis, someone like that who's been following.
He's so good. Maybe. He just shot away, man. He's got a 5,000 yard stare because of everything he's seen.
He was an orderly at the institution and he survived and he saw it.
Yeah, and like Loomis, he's got a disfiguration of some kind. I think Loomis has got the...
So we're using all the best elements of all these horror movies and slotting them all together.
Definitely, man. And I want to start Act 3 real happy. It's almost as if it's not horror.
Kind of...
Yeah, just like it's all groovy, man. Everything's cool. Good group of friends. They're having fun in a Stand By Me kind of a modern Stand By Me kind of a way.
And they start getting picked off.
Then we drop maybe we have a couple of deaths, or we bring in someone coming to town and we do the big reveal. It's Clementine, and that's where we're like,
or we could do it
after we've had a few weird deaths.
So for my ending, I was thinking, how can this end? And I've just for some reason. Don't even know what it means. I put birth in reverse. So I was thinking like Clementine gets sucked into Posey in a kind of... But somehow she gets drawn, maybe the demon or whatever, gets sucked into the Ouija board, or she has to go back inside her mother.
Yeah, well, like at this point, like, is Posey like the granddad in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where she's just like a husk that like can barely communicate, or just like does the.
She's got she like eats through a straw, communicates through a straw. Yeah, but she's still got a hold over Clementine, who is still undead but unrotted somehow.
And there's like
it's the evil of Mr. Snoogles is keeping her young and
yeah. That's his power, man. Like he just needed the inn. When he's got the inn, he can keep everything running, man. He just needs the key to the Jaguar or whatever. Do you know what I mean, man? He's absolutely ready to take over this corpse and let it live for as long as his powers allow. As long as he is doing all of these horrific, nefarious things that he's up to. Because I want some like scenes when like Posey and Clem are communicating with each other, and you've got that just like, and it's almost so we're going to bring a bit of Psycho in with the yes, mother, I understand you, mother. But it's not even mother anymore, because this is Snoogles in, he doesn't care about keeping any pretense of the fact that he's a teenage lady or whatever it is, man. He's quite happy just to communicate almost as. Maybe
they could switch places when they need to. So when Clem, a bit like in The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, where he awakes Caesar the somnambulist to go out and perform his dark deeds, when Mr. Snoogles can transfer from Posey into Clementine to revivify her to go out and perform in the real world. They have a weird symbiotic relationship where they can move between each other. It's getting a bit weird.
Yeah, well, that's it. But then I like the idea of like a sort of putrefying Clementine that is revivified every time Posey, because like they want to disguise themselves, so maybe they do go back to the same town, but in order to completely disguise themselves, like she takes the youth and vigor of the demon, and and Posey sucks it into her to get that revivified. Oh, this is Posey as she was back in the day. Kind of thing.
No one's going to remember
not
her.
Recognise.
Or the old people. I think I recognise her. She really looks like
you are the spitting image of blah blah blah.
Shame, total shame what happened to her, and she's just walking around in plain sight.
Yeah, that kind of a thing, but like dressed in 90s wear or whatever she's rocking now. To bring back the craft. Yeah.
So, to bring back the craft. So it's kind of got a touch of the picture of Dorian Gray in it as well. So Clementine's body is degrading, but then it's revivified, and sometimes it's Posey.
And that's it. And we feed back to Posey when she's talking about Clementine. She like way back in the first act. She starts to use like the royal we a lot. She starts to treat Clementine as her. And like she speaks in eyes when she's talking about Clementine somewhere, because she knows that the demon is promising like this everlasting transference of energy and life for her moving forward, and that's her like big reward for the servitude that she has given Mr. Snoogles.
So is it a reward thing for everlasting life, or is it a revenge thing to come back and beat the bullies, or is it a bit of both?
Well, I suppose her reward is the revenge, and to do that, she needs the extension of life that she is getting through this transference.
So we do need to have someone come in and figure all this bollocks out. I was thinking for the originally for the third part, when Clementine is going around murdering the high school kids, she's almost not the heroine, but she's the best mate of the Luke Skywalker. So it is much more of a teen slasher. That's one of us amongst us is picking off these people.
And so Clementine will be sort of like the Ouija board was to Posey, to the group of kids that we meet who are the investigators. And she'll sucker the kids in by showing very small, strange kind of magic
that she can
some
do.
of the leaders, just really, really like simple stuff that could almost just be exactly that, man. That could almost just be a magic trick, but there's always a little bit of a bite to any of the magic she does. Like the frog she makes disappear. So when we were talking about getting scared by things as kids, like there are certain things that will just unsettle the hell out of you want to run away from. It's that ability to fascinate with the horror that you're presenting as opposed to repel, man. And she has got the knack to do that when she is weaving her way through the generation of kids that wronged her in the past.
It's a different type of, this would probably be a bit more 90s, so it's a different type of horror now.
Yeah, we're going urban legend. I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Scream kind of thing, So much like Lincoln's Inn was an anthology, we're kind of doing an anthology here through these 3 films, or there's one film that kind of
Yes,
merges timelines and stuff.
And then you'd really be able to stamp the time periods on each one of them that we want to stamp in. We'd really be able to flesh out all of the characters enough so whenever anything happened, it was truly horrifying, man. And then I like the fact that we come in with film number 3 and we start with an absolute double bluff red herring, and it's all just lovely. And it's just about these cute kids having like a Kings of Summer style investigation. And then in walks Clem with, I guess, a hoodie on or something to cover a wound.
Of course,
she never wears a crop top, man. Like ever.
In the 90s, that's going to be difficult. That's going to be difficult costuming. So yeah, that was kind of my broad overview for My Clementine. A kind of victory lap through horror film genres and staples and pastiches and nicking some bits and stitching it together.
I love being able to explore the different kinds of horror with each movie as well, man.
All right, well, that was My Clementine.
Oh, mate, thank you very much. Dude.
You're welcome.
I mean, let's be honest here, it wasn't one pitch. You gave us 3 films. That's not bad. I don't think we've had a trilogy pitched yet, and there is no better time than Halloween for that.
We had 3 different pitches for Starlight Stanley. You gave us a trilogy in your anthology film.
Yeah, I guess I'm just liking the complete split, man. You chilled my spine. You sent some shivers up it.
Nice.
You made me feel like I was reaching into a bag with my eyes closed and touching eyeballs or worms, like we used to do at Halloween parties, man.
Yeah. Scary stuff.
And generally felt like kind of slippery with viscera, like when Blair is doing the autopsy of the Thing. Man. That was cracking, man. Really appreciate that, dude.
Oh, you're welcome.
Moly.
You're welcome. Wow, that was a lot of horror and a lot of...
That was a horror-packed bonanza of blood, man. That was an absolute orgy of gorgy, and I am happy that occurred, man.
Yeah,
Jesus
me too.
wept.
Well
So
done
yeah,
us.
dude, like we've dropped a lot of thank you guys as well so much for listening. As always, man, we really, really enjoy doing a little one-shot for this very special time of year. We implore you, although this is going to drop, this is going to drop the night before Halloween, actually, so you have ample time to terrify yourselves. So, like, some of the movies we mentioned, like, I implore you, if you haven't had a Butcher's, there's some absolutely cracking horrors in there, and I really hope that we can, in a small or large way, add to the complete and utter spookiness of your Halloween, guys. And thank you so much for coming into this haunted Mind Cinema with us.
And I guess we shall see you all when we see you.
Anon.
Anon, maybe in your dreams or your nightmares. And so, the incantations of doom and despair are over for another annum. The candles are guttering. The wind is abating and the wolves on the moor ravage no longer. We bid thee all safe passage from the gates of the Psycho Kino toward hearth and dream. And pray you dream not further of what you have seen and heard behind this veil, for should you do so, what eternal unreason may then befall you. But should thine thirst lust for more tales of mystery and imagination, I say then to thee, sail to the lands of TheNeverPress.com to further seek out your terrible misfortunes.